everybody. This is Tulip.
And this is your lazy lion, self-obsessed, drug-abusing, cheating, fornicating with a filthy mouth, Cassidy.
Back from a long hiatus, both of us.
Yes, the episode is episode 6. He is gone, but we are back.
So it's been a long time, and we started talking a little bit before we started recording. And I think we should just get right into our ratings, because I'm wondering if the hiatus that we took influenced my rating of this episode. But we talked and we both kind of decided maybe not.
No, I was very underwhelmed by this episode, and I really don't think that it has anything to do with us taking a 3-month break.
Only 3 months? I guess it's been 3 months. Oh,
September 22nd. Yeah, just about 3 months.
Well, I gave it 3 out of 5 vanilla flavored hash browns.
And I gave it 3 out of 5 severed nipples.
And that was Donnie's nipple.
I seriously almost did the hash browns rating. That's hilarious. That was my runner-up for rating.
Funny.
But how can you pass up severed nipple?
Well, when you come up, I promise to feed you vanilla flavored hash browns, and I won't do the other.
That sounds amazing. Just no fires, okay?
Okay, I'm good with that. Yeah, totally good with that.
We'll skip that one.
Yeah, been there, done that for a lifetime, so.
Yeah, no more need of that. Speaking of fire, he is gone. He's being tortured in hell.
I know, so.
Okay, we thought poor Eugene, but so this episode, I'm just going to, I got to go straight into my good. Yeah, do you have numbers?
Oh my God, of course I do, but go ahead. We can hit the numbers after we do good, Job, and Revelation. How's that?
Okay, so my good was we got a lot of backstory, for as blah as an episode. And I think the reason why this episode was so blah is we didn't have a real body count this episode, We didn't have the angels. It was very filler and backstory. And part of the backstory was we found out Eugene. He is an attempted murderer, attempted suicide, and he failed at both. So he's not as innocent as he sort of projects. And we kind of had been suspicious of that all along. So, there's Eugene's tale of woe, and we also learned where Jesse's guilt comes from. He thinks that his father's death is on him. So, yeah.
And also where the connection with Tulip came from.
Yeah. I mean, we had seen that him and Tulip were friends before, but, they were always partners in crime, and they were separated at some point, and they always swore till the end. So, till the end of the world.
Yep. So, I have to ask you, since you brought up Eugene and Tracy Loach, do you think that Jesse deserves, or that Eugene deserves the punishment Jesse gave him? Because Jesse certainly seems to.
Well, why isn't Eugene in jail?
I want to know why Eugene, or why Jesse isn't more concerned, but maybe Eugene isn't in jail because of his dad.
Yeah, that's the only reason. We don't know. We just have Jesse's take on the circumstances, but that sounds like attempted murder to me. I don't know how you could justify that at all. And, I can't say that, anyone deserves, well, there's a lot of people who deserve to burn it up.
But Eugene isn't one of them.
Eugene is one of them, he was, for one, okay, legally he was a minor, and, in a lot of states he can't really be held to the same standard. I mean, he's still, he's not held to the same standard of good and bad and right and wrong, and because his brain hasn't fully developed, and so I don't know, I don't think he deserves to burn in hellfire for eternity, but he does deserve some punishment. And is that punishment the life that he was living already?
Right. I mean, and I kind of wonder if law enforcement or maybe even a jury didn't look at him as being punished enough.
Yeah.
You know?
A very sympathetic character, like we've said all along.
Right.
But, you know, I mean, that's pretty... That's the stuff of, like, Dateline that, like, he like, liked this girl and she didn't like him back, so he went and shot her in the head. You know, I mean, that's some pretty serious stuff. So I don't know. Yeah.
So I'm going to get super morbid on you for a minute, just because this is some local news that's been big recently. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we had a group of teenagers murder another teen up here. Probably half an hour from our house.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you brought up brain development and understanding of consequences, because that's one of the big conversations that I got into with a couple of people yesterday. Yeah. You know, I mean, what we know now about medical research into the brain, we think that the brain isn't fully developed until about the age of 25. So...
Well, and I don't know if you can gauge brain development for the same ways you can the difference between right and wrong, and I mean, because
that's part of it.
There's always a gray area, you know. I mean, it's not every person that's shot is a bad person. Not every shooter is a good person. I mean, there's no black and white. It's all a gray area, and without knowing more about Eugene's case, I mean, so to me, at this point, it sounds pretty cut and dry that, you know, she didn't like him back, so he was really upset and he shot her in the head. You know, he couldn't live without her, and he wasn't going to let her live without him. So,
but that's like a 15 or 16-year-old's conception of eternity and forever and all those things, which are not an adult's conception of eternity and forever.
And what are you reading at this point in high school? Romeo and Juliet?
Right. You know? Good point. I actually never thought about that as being a part of brain development before, but that's a good point.
Yeah, we are we're influenced by what we're exposed to.
Sure, and we're culturally conditioned.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
We got super into that. And here Diane didn't think we could fill out an hour. We could go on and on about brain development.
And Preacher.
And Preacher.
And katanas.
So, for those of you that don't know, Diane got her Christmas present a little early because her husband could not wait. And she got Michonne's katana from The Walking Dead.
Like an authentic live replica. It actually, if I put an edge on it, it will be a functional samurai sword.
Which you have to put an edge on.
Oh, I totally will, you know.
Yeah.
I threatened to take it to work, but my husband told me I couldn't get it through the security doors at work, so...
You know, I'm sure that you could probably have one of the inmates make you a scale-sized mini replica out of a razor blade and toothbrush.
I was going to say, or, you know, like soap or a newspaper. Or...
Yep.
Alrighty then, so my good.
Moving on.
It's actually Tulip, and it's really small, but I loved the part where she ran down the kids who stole Walter's pants. Yeah. I mean, it was just really well filmed and just kind of one of those moments that strikes you in terms of how it's placed and where it's placed in the episode. But also, I just loved it that we saw she still has a soft spot. Mm-hmm. And she obviously cares for Walter.
Yeah.
So we saw some good in Tulip, which I think was really cool.
That was one of the biggest action scenes of the episode.
Right.
So, yeah.
But, you know, we've been talking a lot about how Cassidy is the good guy and Tulip's not so good. And I just really like to see this little bit of redemption for Tulip in this episode. It was kind of cool.
Gray area. Nothing's black or white.
Right. Isn't that true with all of our characters?
Absolutely. So the people in the neighborhood that were giving her the stink eye, giving her and her uncle the stink eye, And later on in the episode, she chastises Jesse for his judgmental backwater Southern preacher Christian ways. I think that really ties in the episode, is just that just the judginess of everybody and their holier than thou attitude.
Well, and that we'll talk more because I have more to say about Jesse's dad, but that really plays into a big part of his backstory, just how incredibly judgmental he actually was.
Right. But I'm really surprised by the other people in the neighborhood. I mean, they have to know that, the uncle is at least at one time, a functioning alcoholic. I mean, I don't think he's really functioning too much anymore. But, just, I don't know. It was weird giving her the stink eye for, something that she really didn't have a lot of control over.
I kind of wondered too, though, because there was a lot of talk about the O'Hares. I mean, even Jesse did it.
Yes.
It kind of makes you wonder if Walter just isn't like Tulip paying for the name that he bears.
Yeah.
It's even less about Walter and Walter's alcoholism than it is about the fact that he's an O'Hare.
Yeah. And, I realize people, not everyone has upward mobility, but, Tulip got out of the town. I don't, other than Jesse, I don't know why the hell she ever came back.
Right.
But, if your name is mud in that town and people are so judgmental, I don't think I could stay there.
I don't know. Maybe it gets really boring murdering people with corn cobs. But yeah, that was my good. It was a little thing, but my good news. I really loved seeing that moment in Tulip's life.
Yeah, and I have to tell you that my other half, he was like, "Is she running with panties in her hands?" He thought she had a pair of red panties, and I'm like, "Oh God, no! Those are wedge heels. You cannot run in wedge heels. You can run in stilettos before you can run in wedge heels." And I speak from experience.
I just want you to know that you're going to see those shoes again.
Oh?
Yes, but I'm not going to say anything other than that because I was bad and watched forward. So
Diane watched forward. That is right. That is right. So, by the way, the title of the episode is "He's Gone." Did you have anything other than the obvious? Eugene is gone.
I mean, Jesse's dad.
Okay.
Cassidy.
Uh-huh.
And Jesse himself.
Absolutely. Oh my God, you nailed it all. That's exactly what I was thinking. Because, on the surface, the episode "He's Gone,"
it's totally Eugene. You
think it refers to Eugene, but as you watch more and more and you think about it, you're like, well, Jesse, is Jesse acting or is this Genesis? Which one of them has control?
I actually had the same question. Cassidy kind of hints at it being Genesis that messes Jesse's perspective up. But I also just kind of wonder if this is just Jesse. We're just seeing a side of Jesse we haven't seen before. I mean, remember Donnie's kids said, they said you were a real bad man before you came back, that you did bad things.
Well, and is he, I mean, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We've talked about that, but is, and the whole, the intent, I mean, my good may not be your good. And so does he really think that he's doing good? And I really don't think that he does, because when he was doing his sermon and he ended it, and he was right before they did the prayer of confession, he was very unsure when he looked up at the congregation and he's like, "Serve God." He looked very unsure of himself, and so
didn't he also look kind of angry and evil while they were doing the prayer of confession?
Yes, he looked very angry. After Eugene had disappeared, and he looked very shocked and concerned when he turned around and there was no Eugene, and he just kind of snapped out of it and turned and walked away. But I think it sort of set in when he was talking, through his sermon and through the prayer, and throughout the episode. I think it ate away at him more and more, and that's where we see in the end him trying to dig up the spot that Eugene had disappeared in. So I think he's very surely unsure of himself. He thinks he's doing the right thing, but I think he knows in his heart he's not.
Well, I think too the other stuff that we saw, like the incredible spiritedness toward both Tulip and Emily.
Okay, so that is my bad.
Oh, okay. Well, so
Yeah,
that's your Book of Job. Tell me more then.
That is my Book of Job.
Okay.
Jesse was just an arse face during all of this.
He was horrible.
He was horrible. I mean, the things that he said to Emily and just his mannerisms. I mean, the way that he was eating, it was it was very reminiscent of somebody who is emotionally manipulative or physically abusive, or I mean, it was just somebody who was just very unconcerned with everybody else's feelings around them.
So, question for you: when he told Emily to go home, did she leave because she was upset, or did she leave because she was commanded to leave?
She left because she was upset because he told her she was stupid for idolizing him all that time.
But yeah. I also kind of wondered if there wasn't a touch of the word in that as well. I mean, we didn't hear the changes that we normally hear in the voice.
Right.
But, it makes you wonder.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there always a little bit of command in his voice without us hearing it?
That's a good possibility.
Yeah.
And it may be as he becomes more connected with Genesis.
Yeah.
There will be less and less differentiation.
Yeah. The lines will be blurred between him and Genesis. Where does Jesse end and Genesis begin?
Right. And I don't think we have answers to that.
Little Miss I watched ahead.
No, and even having watched ahead, I still don't think we have a solid answer to that question.
Okay.
I'm not trying to mess with you, man.
I can't believe you watched ahead.
I know, I'm bad. You have my permission.
I don't know. No, I don't know how you can podcast knowing, having forethought, like.
I acted like I didn't know. I mean, when I went through and did my stuff tonight, I was like, I'm doing this with the mind of someone who doesn't know the season end.
Can you ever really do that, though? Like,
yes, you can.
I don't know if I could make the speculation that I could make. That, like my bold prediction type things, knowing that it's probably wrong, knowing that it is wrong.
Well, I don't have any bold prediction stuff, but that's not really my bag anyway. I mean, even when I'm doing biters with Brian, it's his bag, it's not mine.
Right.
So my bag is just to kind of be present and talk about what we've just watched.
Yeah. Same here. So you're bad.
So my Book of Job was actually Jesse as well. And it was a lot of what we've already talked about. Are we seeing his true self, or are we seeing Genesis? I hate that he doesn't really show any real guilt about Eugene. I mean, he really doesn't. I hate that he let Cassidy burn.
Oh,
that was so horrible.
Cassidy can't be dead.
So,
right?
So my husband said, they don't really tell us if he let him burn or if he put him out. They don't really tell us anything beyond seeing Cassidy collapse. I feel like he let Cassidy burn. And I'm not saying that knowing the outcome. I'm just saying that was my feeling when I first watched this episode. I'm not telling you if that's true or not, but I felt like he just let Cassidy burn, and it was horrible.
Yeah, and so based on the synopsis for the next episode, which we would have seen after this episode, so based on that, the part of it is Tulip tries to save a friend, and so that's I would assume that would be Cassidy. She's given her blood already once before to Cassidy, so it would stand a reason that she'd, help him again, and she knows how to help him. So I'm going to say that Jesse wasn't much help, if any at all, but Cassidy survives.
So the other question I have for you, not commenting on your decision around the outcome, is, do you think that he let him burn because he was so shocked. I mean, I actually realized that Tulip was right. He said kind of jokingly to Jesse that he was a 119 or 117-year-old Irish vampire, but Jesse never took that seriously, and I didn't realize that.
And then there was this scene in the church with the angels where Jesse and Cassidy were fighting the angels, and Cassidy gets stabbed, and he winds up, like, I think licking up the blood off the floor or something and healing himself. I mean, there have been multiple opportunities to figure out that Cassidy's legit a vampire.
Right.
And I think just Jesse's been so self-absorbed, and rightfully so. I can't fault him for that. When I say self-absorbed, I mean he's going through his own crap right now.
Sure.
So I think that Jesse's just been so self-absorbed with everything that's happening around him that he's like, okay, yeah, weirdo, you're a 119-year-old vampire, and he's never really observed enough to be like, okay, you're on the level.
So he's never really thought through like the real consequences of what Cassidy has suggested and what he's seen Cassidy do.
And what's funny is he's standing there lecturing Cassidy on, you've seen it, there's angels, there's demon, heaven and hell is real, what more proof do you blah, blah, blah. He's like lecturing how Cassidy is just naive in all of this, and Cassidy's like, no dude, you're the one being naive. I will show you how naive you've been. And so it's kind of ironic that he's sitting there lecturing Cassidy, and Cassidy's the one that's like, well, let me show you something.
Yeah.
And it sort of backfires on Cassidy, no pun intended.
Oh, God. Well, so there was not to dig too deep into my word, but there was another thing that I thought when Cassidy went up in flames. Actually, no, never mind. I'll wait. It actually is sort of loosely tied. It's something that happens before.
Okay.
So I also, commented on Jesse being mean to Emily and mean to Tulip. He was also really awful to the people who were prepping for the church play.
Oh, yes.
And I remember, and I think it was you and we talked quite a bit about Lot's story and the Pillar of Salt story. Wasn't that, it was when we were podcasting Fear the Walking Dead together, right? Because I think it was you and me. I don't think it was me and Bri.
No, it was definitely you and me, but I don't know. You've got me into 3 podcasts now.
So I'm actually just kind of wondering why the church would choose Lot's story to tell at this particular juncture.
Well, Sodom and Gomorrah, of course.
Right, but I mean, I don't know. I don't have any sense of the timing, so I don't know if we're around some major holiday that would have a holiday pageant. I kind of looked back at the story of Lot to try to remember what the significance might be in this circumstance. And yeah, there's Sodom and Gomorrah. There's also, after Lot left Sodom and Gomorrah and his wife was frozen into a pillar of salt, his daughters were still alive, and eventually he begot children on his daughters. I mean, it's just kind of, and I just don't know. I mean, there's got to be something about why they chose Lot's story, and I haven't figured out the symbolism of that.
Well, so, if you're a fan of the comic books, you kind of know the storyline of and we've talked about this before, where the end times, where, and so I see it in that respect, where the destruction of I don't want sinners, unbelievers, things like that. So. That's where I see it as going.
So you see it as kind of an Armageddon and the world kind of...
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, it was just interesting. So that, I mean, yes, Jesse was my Job as well, and those were just some of the things that came up for me while I was thinking about him.
And I think we're wrong on our Job is our good, our Revelations is bad.
No, Revelations is just kind of like, this is what you get out of the episode. This is what...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of Revelation,
because Job is a bummer, man.
What did you get out of the episode?
So my revelation was exactly what you brought up as your good, all the backstory.
Yeah.
So, I especially focused on John Custer's backstory. Jesse's father, and his betrayal of Tulip.
Why do you think he did that?
I don't know. I wonder if we're going to get more backstory about the O'Hares.
So I think he did it for two reasons. I think he did it, one, because of the O'Hares.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I think he was protecting her from what was to come of him.
So I have another idea. I think he was really uncomfortable with the tight friendship with some young love overtones that was developing between Jesse and Tulip.
Yeah. I saw him a little more as brother and sister, but they were just before the age of
Right.
Romeo and Juliet.
And totally, too, I mean, the whole till the end of the world thing, that was more of a lover thing than a brother and sister kind of thing. You know?
I kind of think that that is definitely the behavior of two children that have come from very broken homes,
right.
that they sort of clung to each other for normalcy.
Sure, they did, and
they had each other's backs. I mean, anytime anybody said anything bad about Tulip, Jesse was right there to punch him, and Tulip the same.
Right.
So I saw them more as brother and sister at that point, but there was definitely the buddings of an early relationship there. So,
I think so too.
Yeah. So yeah, Jesse's dad.
So I have a couple questions about Jesse's dad. Who killed him?
I don't know. Was it Carlos or Carlos's gang or the gang that Carlos inherited? I mean,
well, Carlos is definitely too young because he's basically Jesse and Tulip's age, right? I mean, that's what I'm assuming.
Right.
So the other question I have is maybe it was the O'Hares. Maybe it was somebody from the meatpacking plant. Maybe it was a Kincannon or...
the Kincannons have always been after that property.
Oh... So that could be it right there. Just very simply, by getting rid of John Custer, they increase their chances to get the property.
Yeah. And, I mean,
Odin?
Jesse's dad, his whole, be one of the good guys because there's already enough bad guys.
Right.
So, we know that Odin's a really bad guy, and reason would stand that, that sort of runs in the family, because I don't think he could have gotten that way on his own.
Oh, I agree.
I mean, that, like, him just listening to the kill floor with that serene look on his face, gazing out the window.
So, I just have to comment about that, and I know we're kind of randomly skipping all over the place, but I felt like the sound was more horrifying, it sounded more violent. I felt like it was much more exposed and much more to the point than it was the first time we saw him doing that.
So I have to tell you, for those of you who may not know, we have a couple of dogs, and our black lab was laying on the couch next to me during that scene.
Ooh.
And she raised her head up, and she's a TV watcher anyway, but she raised her head up and she was staring at the screen wide-eyed, like,
was she kind of wigged out?
Yeah, she was totally creeped out, and I think that she could hear, like, I think that has to be like an actual recording or something of like the fear of the cattle, because they say that they do know, and they can smell it, they can sense it, they can hear it, they can feel it, and I really think that was an honest recording, and I think she could sense the fear and just hopelessness of those cows, and she's actually cuddling up next to me right now.
Oh, I'm sorry, Phoenix.
Yeah. So I mean, it was just, and I actually thought of that too the first time I watched it. She wasn't with me. It was not only violent, but like there was one like curdling sound that a cow made, and it, like, I was like, that is the sound of fear.
Yeah, there was a lot more fear and a lot more.
Yeah.
It was just a lot more awful.
Yeah, it was truly, truly awful. So, yeah, Quincannon's quite the yucky character.
So, I've got to say though, and you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I didn't really feel like there was a character that I really liked in this episode. maybe Cassidy, because
Yeah.
he was advocating for Eugene and he was advocating for Jesse to take ownership and do the right thing. You know, definitely that glimpse of good in Tulip.
Yeah.
But overall, and well, no, and actually, now that I
Emily.
think about it, I didn't really feel one way or the other about Emily, but I actually felt sorry for Sheriff Root for the first time. Like,
Yeah.
truly sorry for him.
When he went back to Eugene's empty bedroom and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where Eugene was a shameful burden for him, but having him gone, especially with no explanation. I mean, he had yelled at him before, like something to the effect of, "Why couldn't you have just finished the job?"
Right.
Or yeah, I like, and the man, he has a lot of guilt over his son, but he has a lot of, there's a lot of pain in his family, and you know, we've talked about that with his job, the things that he sees at his job, and then he comes home and his wife is catatonic and his son is just a daily reminder of the horrors that he, you know, he's put a lot of people through. So yeah, he's a sympathetic character now, like
Yeah.
Eugene.
And like, Jesse is not. All of a
No.
sudden.
Yeah, the tide has turned.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Cassidy for me this episode, Cassidy was, because he's trying to be a friend to Jesse. He's trying. I think he really feels something for Tulip. It's
Quite
beyond,
sadly, I think you're right.
yeah, because he's kind of like, what are we gonna do about this? Like,
He
how are
totally
we?
doesn't grok that Tulip was just using him. He totally doesn't get it.
Yeah, he's like, we made love, and
I
Tulip's
know.
like, is that what you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and he's sitting at the dinner table just gleefully eating vanilla extract hash browns. And so, you know, and talking about the Big Lebowski and the Coen brothers.
Right. I
And
love that the Big Lebowski reference came up again.
again, yeah. He, you know, he, unlike Jesse, who is completely unconcerned about anybody else's thoughts or feelings or anything like that, Cassidy, I think, is sort of trying to make light of the situation by light conversation and just sort of being himself and trying to soldier on, and, you know, yeah.
I have to tell you, another thing that struck me about Cass eating that dinner was that I couldn't figure out why he was faking it, because I really thought at that point that they had all accepted that he was a vampire. I really didn't realize until, you know, he got out there with the fire extinguisher that Jesse really had not accepted that.
I hadn't either, because I was like, Tulip confronted him about it, and he's like, I
Right.
told him like 9 or 10 times. And I'm like,
Right.
I don't think he's actually told, but he did tell him, I'm a 119-year-old
Right.
fire from Dublin, you know.
But I
And
think Jesse thought he was just BSing,
yeah,
you know?
he was just a loony character who smokes attic insulation, you know.
Right. And drinks the wee bit of the shite out of the AC.
So, you know, it had not occurred to me that Jesse had not accepted it. I mean, it was made known. He should have been fully aware, but again, I mean, Jesse's going through his own stuff right now, so, you know, I can't really fault him for as big a jerk as he was in this episode. I can't fault him for not really realizing that Cassidy was on the level.
Well, and I think the whole thing that really kind of comes up about Jesse, and it's triggered by his experience with Eugene, is that we realize that he has this horrible guilt around his dad, that he prayed for his dad to be sent straight to hell. And so what does he do? He starts out, finishes the last episode / starts out this episode by sending Eugene straight to hell.
Yeah.
So I really think, that he's completely triggered by what he just did and by his remembrance of making that prayer around his father, even though he's got to know as an adult that that's unrelated to what actually happened.
Is it though?
Well, I don't know. Preacher's universe is weird. It might not be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Genesis chose him and was able to be embodied. He was the embodiment of Genesis. And, there's always been something about Jesse. And so was it sort of his destiny to receive Genesis?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's messed up, dude. It's messed up.
It is. We only have like 3 episodes left to podcast,
I
right?
know. And then I looked tonight to see if I could figure out when the new season starts, and I had not found a start date as of our airtime tonight.
Okay.
So
well, the season 1 started May 22nd, and it seems like AMC's been running about a week early on stuff, a week or 2 early.
Right. We talked about that with Walking Dead.
Right. And so I'm wondering if we're going to see a mid-May start.
And so what they will most likely do then is, so it looks like we're getting into the Badlands while Walking Dead is on hiatus, right?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't have AMC.
Oh, right. I don't see anything about when Fear is coming back. So they may do Into the Badlands, Walking Dead, and then the opener of Preacher, the opener of Fear, the rest of Preacher, the rest of Fear, and then that gets us back into Walking Dead again.
Right.
So, I don't know. I think you're right. I think we'll probably see it around the same time, sometime in May.
Yeah.
So I'm going to back us up a little bit. So I do have numbers for this episode.
Okay.
Let's see. It premiered on July 10th initially, and the same day view was 1.6 million. But, and I didn't find like the whole Live Plus 3 numbers, but it had a 0.7 million jump in just the 18 to 49 age bracket.
Nice.
It actually more than doubled its viewership in that age bracket when you do Live Plus 3. So it went up to 1.3 million. Excuse me, goodness.
Bless you.
Thank you. It's only appropriate for a 119-year-old Irish vampire to say that to me.
Right?
Anyway, so it went up to 1.3 in just the 18 to 49 age group with Live Plus 3. So I think we're probably looking at over 2.3 million viewers when we're looking at Live Plus 3 for the whole viewership. So the numbers are they're challenged, but they're hanging in there.
Right.
Let's see. It was written by a woman named Mary Laws. She's written 3 episodes of Preacher, and she did a screenplay called The Neon Demon.
Oh, so yes, this is. I've been seeing this come up on my Amazon Prime, which I'm having an issue. Yes, I've been having an issue with. It stars Elle Fanning.
Okay.
And so I haven't watched it yet. I've been wanting to watch it, and one of the reviews that said. If you like movies with unresolved endings, or this is I've been kind of setting it off for when I'm kind of in a mood where I really don't care how something ends. But because I had watched something on Amazon Prime, and it came up as a recommended, and the thing that I had watched had a very unresolved ending, and I'm like, how did you leave it like that?
Well, there you go. It's Mary Law's fault.
Right, and so Neon Demon, actually, it's very stylized and just it looks really just amazing cinematography wise and directorial and things like that. It's sort of about the dark underbelly of like modeling and things like that, but it looks like a really like beautiful movie.
So we will trust you to give us your review then.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna have to watch it. That's funny that that was the person for this episode, because it keeps coming up on my Amazon recommendations.
Well, there you go. It was meant to be.
It was meant to be.
The writer was a guy named Michael Morris, and I just picked out a couple of things that he had worked on. He has done some work for *Halt and Catch Fire*, which is an AMC series. He's got just this one episode of Preacher to his credit thus far, and he has worked on *Bloodline* and *Kingdom*, both of which I'm familiar with, but I haven't watched. And he has several other credits as well. So it looks like he's been pretty steadily working. I actually picked the guy who played John Custer, Jesse's dad, to be the featured cast member. And the reason that I did it, and this is kind of some cool trivia, you probably know this already, but they were not actually going to cast somebody to be Jesse's dad. They were going to have Dominic... I'm losing his name. Dominic Cooper, the guy who plays Jesse.
Yes.
Play both the father and the son.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
And then they realized that they were going to have so many scenes where they were having them be...
Yeah, that would have been confusing.
Yeah. So they actually decided to go ahead and cast someone for John. And so the guy that they cast was this guy named Nathan Darrow. I just picked out, again, a couple of things that he had worked on that we would be familiar with. Gotham and House of Cards. He's had recurring characters on both of those series. He actually plays Victor Freeze. Remember Arnold Schwarzenegger's character?
Yes.
He plays that character in Gotham.
I'm very behind on my Gotham viewing, so I have not seen that character yet, which is why I was like, really?
Well, and we're a bit behind too. We've watched parts of some of Gotham, but we're totally not caught up. So yeah, and he was born on the summer solstice in 1976, which makes him 6 years younger than me, which makes me feel really freaking old because I think he looks older than me. But that's Jesse's dad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at his IMDb, and that his main picture on IMDb, I would not have picked him as Jesse's dad. Could not have picked that out of a lineup.
Yeah, no, he doesn't look like him at all, does he?
No.
And I'm kind of wondering if that's not his screenshot from Gotham.
I think it is.
Is it?
Except it's funny. It looks like he looks like the Penguin. He looks like he's kind of like imitating the Penguin on Gotham. So.
Maybe he is. Maybe that's how Victor Freeze got his start.
We will see.
I guess if we watch Gotham.
There's so much good stuff to watch.
I know. The Man in the High Castle is mine to catch up on here pretty soon. So.
Yes, that is coming up very soon.
Yes. So what else do you have? What do you have for the word? Just kind of your wanderings through the episode. We've talked about a lot of it, but
why is Odin sort of reneging on his pledge? My other half and I talked about this, and you and I had talked about this earlier. I was
just going to say, it goes back to what we talked about when
serve
Jesse told
God.
him to serve God. He didn't say serve the biblical God of Abraham. He just said serve God.
Well, and Jesse's pledged that he would leave a Christian. And he didn't tell Odin to be a Christian.
Right.
He told him to serve God, and we discussed, what is Odin's God?
Right.
Is it money? Is it, Is
it money? Is it power? Is it...
something even more nefarious and disgusting?
It's obviously not Jesse's God.
Right. So, do either of them have a case? Do both of them have a case for, I get where they're both coming from. I call it a draw at this point, but, he was commanded to serve God. And so is that what we see in the end? I mean, is he serving his God with that end scene?
I don't know. I mean, he might be. It's certainly another leap toward money, power, his business. Mm-hmm. It certainly makes more sense than anything else that could be posited, at this point.
He talks a lot about how, he does in like a month what his grandfather did in a week,
right.
As far as the meat packing. And so is his God just the advancement of his family's legacy, beyond the power and money?
Well, so I think, though, that we also catch a glimpse of his God when he's listening to the meatpacking floor.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that whole thing was, I mean, we saw very little of Odin in this episode, and it was very telling in that, because at first I was like, how is he able to resist Jesse's word? And then I was like, well, we've discussed this. He's not actually resisting it, because what is his God?
Right.
And so it will be interesting to see where they take this, in that, if we see who Odin serves.
I mean, I think he totally is following Jesse's word to the letter.
Yep.
He's just not doing what Jesse wanted to see.
Yeah. Yeah. So, did you have anything?
Oh, of course, I always do, even though I think we're not going to fill up an episode.
And that was my thing, is I was like, there wasn't a lot of big things to go very in depth, but this episode had a lot of backstory and a lot of fill, so there was a lot of little things that just sort of, tickled your brain a little.
So, this may not be a big deal to anybody else, unless people who are listening. And by the way, we've gotten a little more traffic. I think that may be from biters. Thank you, everybody. This is a comic reference, but who's Jesse's favorite movie star?
And how did he not guess this? Like, I guessed this.
Did you really? I wouldn't have guessed it if I didn't know a bit of the comic book story, and I still haven't read very far ahead from where we are now.
No, immediately I hit the nail right on the head.
That's pretty funny.
I was like, he's a good old Southern boy, of course.
So it will be interesting to see if they actually follow this reference to its full course in the story, because in the comics it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool storyline.
Oh, that's good.
So
I thought it was just kind of a little throwaway line.
It could be, or it might not be, depending on what they decide to do with it.
Right.
Okay. I also like the little girl that they cast to play Tulip. I actually thought that she sounded a lot like a young Ruth Negga.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job.
They did.
Anything else?
I'm looking through my notes here, and I don't see a whole lot. I love their little fight scene.
Yeah, I'm gonna lick your eyeball. That's totally something you would have said when you were a kid. Oh my god.
It totally was. That was my next runner-up after Vanilla Hash Brown. Licked eyeballs. Yeah. So. Yeah, I don't think that there was much more than that. We left off. What was up with the they call them the meat men,
right? The guys at the end.
Yeah, so the guys at the end who looked like they were rolling up to the church, like they had rolled up to the house that they demolished earlier. But some of them were dressed in Civil War regalia. What's up with that?
So I'll tell you, the first thing I thought when Jesse was, standing there over the hole that we assume he's looking for Eugene in, yelling, come back, come back. I thought maybe he manifested some ghosts. But it's actually Donnie and his brigade. So maybe they were off playing when they got summoned by Kincannon, and they just happened to still be in costume.
Okay, that would make sense. I was like, the South is rising again? What's going on?
But that brings up what I actually was going to say about fire. So we go back to where the hash browns caught on fire. Mm-hmm. And that happens right after Sheriff Root says, "Have you seen Eugene?"
Oh.
Have you seen Eugene? Boom. Big fire in the kitchen. So I just thought that was really a nice piece of, not symbolism. Really foreshadowing because we already know, but symbolism. That's probably a better way to look at it.
And it's interesting. I knew that vanilla extract was flammable, not from speaking from personal experience, but so And it was we don't have a Walmart in Juneau anymore, but we used to. And I looked everywhere one year for coconut extract. I was like, wait, it has to be in the baking aisle. And I went up to customer service and I was like, do you guys have like vanilla extract, coconut extract, hazelnut extract? Like, and they're like, oh yeah, like, what do you need? They have it behind the counter because it has.
No way.
Yeah. It has such a high alcohol content that people would steal it and drink it to get a buzz.
Okay, I live near the meth capital of Alaska, and I just have to tell you, I've never had to buy any kind of extract from the salesperson directly. I've always been able to find what I wanted on the shelf.
And the really sad commentary was that at every other store in town, it was not over the counter. It was just Walmart.
Wow, that's crazy.
But so that is how I knew extract had a high alcohol content.
God.
Don't put it in the oven.
We're going to have vanilla hash browns from now on.
I seriously want to try vanilla hash browns now.
Totally making them for you when you visit. We'll have fresh eggs and vanilla hash browns.
And potato juice.
Yes, but fermented potato juice.
Yes, fermented potato juice. Diane and I were joking earlier that she said she was drinking cranberry and vodka juice. And I was like, well, technically it's potato juice.
All good things come from potatoes.
From potatoes, yes. Chips, fries,
mashed.
Hash browns.
Oh, that's funny. Hash browns, vanilla hash browns. If I can't find any extract, I'll just buy some vanilla vodka. Let's see. I'm just looking
Suddenly this is an episode of My Drunk Kitchen.
Right. I'm just looking back through my notes to see if there's anything else.
My only thing is at the end when he is, ripping up the floorboards and digging, that you hear the word, come back.
Right, commanding.
That reverberation. And so, do you think it's going to work? I mean, you already know, but at the time, did you think it's going to work?
So, I have questions about whether or not it's going to work, because it's definitely the word, and I do think that the personalities are becoming more entangled, and maybe Jesse is becoming more powerful. But we've also seen that he can't undo some of the mistakes that he's already done. Like, he told Tracy Loach to open her eyes, but he didn't tell her to be healed and fully awake.
Right.
So I wonder if he can undo the mistake that he's made in sending Eugene to hell. Because for all of his indifference, I do think that he honestly thinks he made a horrible mistake.
Right. I think it's sort of caught up with him, and it really goes back to, who's controlling this? Who's running this operation? Is it Genesis or is it Jesse? And, which is which, because it seems like he switches back and forth. So.
Well, and I think that, honestly, Jesse has to share power with Genesis.
It has to be a symbiotic relationship.
It does. I think she's Genesis is Jesse's Trill.
That's funny.
Although I liked Dax better. Well, I don't really have anything else. That was pretty much everything that.
I don't either. I'm really glad we're back. I am really glad that we've got some new likes on the page. Hopefully we've got some crossover now that I've been on Biters on a pretty regular basis. So
you're pretty loved on Biters. You realize that, don't you?
Yeah, you dragged me into this kicking and screaming, but I have to say that I've gotten a big head from it. So I think that everyone wants to hear my opinion now.
But Thomas O'Mara did say that he was a better podcaster because he caught things that the four of us didn't catch. So
not Thomas O'Mara.
No, it was O'Mara.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So shout out if you're listening to this, Thomas O'Mara.
Okay. So yeah, he did. He is very big on callbacks, and he's like, oh, on Biters, he's like, we're in season 7, and he's like, yeah, that's a callback to season 2, So the guy's got it down. I got to give him that. So credit where credit's due. Luckily we are in just season 1 of Preacher, so.
So the memories aren't quite faded yet.
No, not quite yet. I'm keeping a log. I'm copy pasting all the synopsises so I can control find.
Oh, that is so funny. I'm not nearly that organized. Well, I suppose we should wish everyone a happy holiday and a Merry Christmas, because I suspect we're not going to podcast before then.
Probably not before, no, but probably shortly thereafter.
Shortly thereafter. I'm working the weekend of Christmas, but I'll be off shortly after that.
Well, I have no life, so like anytime we want to podcast,
well,
I'm good.
My husband had to go and get hay today, and the person that we get our hay from said, "Thank God you have a wife who can pay for her hobbies." I said, "So was that like?" What was that? Was that just like some raging sexist thing to say, or was it just some random comment?
Probably a strong working woman who can pay her own way. I would take that as a compliment.
Nick guessed on the side of raging sexist, but
okay. See, I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt, and at the lowest I'll go is Sugar Mama.
No, it's pretty balanced.
I'm feeling very generous this holiday.
Although I have to tell you that I daily, when I am driving the rental, our listeners don't know this story. I'm in a rental car right now, and I've fallen so head over heels in love with this rental car that I'm actually, hopefully tomorrow, taking the car that is being currently repaired in the auto shop to the dealer so I can finish a trade on the old car for the new car, which is a Dodge Charger.
It so reminds me of Tulip's car. I don't know cars.
That is really funny. Oh.
Yeah, isn't hers a
I'm gonna have to look
Mustang?
back and see what she drives. She drives some sort of muscle car.
I think it's a Mustang.
I have to tell you, I never thought we would own 2 American cars at the same time.
Now you need a glamour plate that says Tulip.
Oh my God, you're right.
I'm so bad.
Oh my God, I'm already thinking about getting a custom paint job, so don't put ideas into my head. I will say that daily, I play I'm in Love with My Car by Queen.
Oh, now we're just rambling.
We are. So everybody, good holidays, Merry Christmas, whatever you celebrate. We hope you have a wonderful, wonderful end of the year.
Yes.
And we'll probably see you shortly after Christmas.
Yes, have a joyous season.
All
and,
right.
Diane, till the end of time.
Oh, little sister till the end of time.
Yeah.
All right, good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
I left his body in the woods, and I took off running south. I left his body